Okay, we're gonna give, we got our stone coat mix in, and so we're going to attempt to do our stone coat countertop, the marble finish. So I'm gonna flip the camera around here so I can show you what we're gonna do. We got our stone coat countertop mix. And then I bought a mixer. I bought my cups, clear cups to put the product in once I mix 1-to-1 on the stone coat epoxy mix. We're going over bare woods, so I have my epoxy undercoat white. So the laundry room is what we're going to be doing. And I'm going to flip the camera around again so I can kind of show you what we're going to do. So cut this piece of plywood, and I think I got most of it sanded down. This piece right here, we have a sink right there. I've already cut it and fitted the sink. The faucet, we wanted a deep sink in it. So the counter is right there. I haven't bolted or screwed the countertop in yet because I want to be able to have a little bit of adjustment on it. Once I get the countertop done and fasten that to the vanity, then I will screw the vanity into place and tighten it up. So it is level though, and then I built this over top the washer and dryer, which we actually talked about maybe even doing the stone coat countertop on that. But first one we're going to do is this and this little board right here, because that actually sits across the top of the sink with a couple of tabs under each side, one here and one there, and then the board will actually turn this way and it'll sit on top of the countertop. It just gives you a little something more to work on and pull up. That was the request of my wife. So what I did is right in the living room, because it's cold outside, I think it's about 36 degrees this morning, is what I did is I put plastic on the floor and a couple of sawhorses underneath of it, and then I took one of my old doors from my remodel, put that underneath of it, and this is going to be my top. And then I actually have these angle brackets right there that I'm going to use. I should have 8 of them up here. So, oh, maybe I miscounted. Oh, no, there we go. So 8 of them, 4 for each of the boards, and I'm going to set those boards on top of that so it's up off of the cardboard a little bit to allow the epoxy, when I get to the point of running over the edges, and be able to finish the edges off. The countertop, just one edge is all I'm worried about, but the little board that's going to go on top is going to be the edges are going. It's going to go over all the edges. So this is my working space, and I'm going to pull the boards out. I'm going to put the epoxy undercoat on them, and we'll see how putting the undercoat works out. So once I get the undercoat on it, I'm actually going to do the undercoat epoxy underneath of it also to kind of seal the wood in, use it as a water barrier. So I'll put the undercoat underneath of it, and then 2 coats on the top with a light sanding in between, kind of how they instruct you to do. And then hopefully on Saturday, that's a few days from now, we will be able to mix the epoxy and do the exotic pour, I guess they call it. I hear dirty pour, exotic pour. I'm not sure what the difference is, but we'll do the exotic pour, let that sit, and then hopefully on Sunday be able to put the clear coat on and be done with it by Monday, and then install it and see how it all turns out. Wish us luck. So now I have 2 coats of the epoxy undercoat. I got 1 more to put on the top of each of these with a fine sand. I'm going to sand with a 220 grit in between. And again, I'm just putting on my epoxy undercoat white. And so I got a little sanding to do, 1 more coat, and be ready to do the epoxy be gone for a couple of days. Plan on getting back. Everything will be pretty well dried and set up at that point. So anyway, we'll see what happens. I'll keep you posted. Sanded lightly in between. I use an electric sander. I'm a wimp, so hand sanding. That's for the young guys trying to build muscles. Anyway, so I did the sanding, or the first sanding in between the coats, and then lightly coated it. Like Mike says, less is best. So or thin to win, I think is what he says. Thin to win. So again, this is the only edge where it's going to run over, and I see I got a little spot there. I might have to fix, we'll see. But most of the edge is pretty good. I think I'll probably go over it a little bit more. Just sometimes you get on the edge here, you get a little bit of a buildup, and I want to make sure I don't have any buildup on the edges so that the epoxy will roll smoothly right over top. So that's it. Let it dry for a couple of days, and then I will be back to put the epoxy on top. Wish me luck. All right, we're back. My wife is going to help me do this project. So we're back to doing our Carrera countertop, epoxy countertops. So it's easier for me to flip it around. And so there's our boards all finished, sanded, ready to go for us to pour on top of them. And I got my torch. We got gray spray paint. We got white spray paint. We got our art coat epoxy mixer bucket. We have a chop brush that we'll be using. And so we looked at videos from Stone Coat, 2 different ways to do the marble. Mike was great on his videos, funny guy. There was the exotic pour and then the chop method. And the exotic pour seems less controllable at colors, where the chop method, you add color and chop it in, and you can control the amount of color marbling effect you want with or without veins or anything like that. So we have chosen to do the chop method. And and we have the art coat, so we have lots of working time, no taping off the corners. It seems like a better way to do it for the beginner. So that's what we're going to do. So again, here's our setup, my lovely assistant. And we're going to give this a try. We did our first coat where we just poured dyed white epoxy over top. And then Sandra hit the end of the chop brush with gray spray paint. And then I'd chop it out. And then we used a heat gun to kind of push it around a little bit and to pop out the bubbles. The heat gun were great to pop the bubbles. The only thing you don't want to do is get too close with the heat gun when you're pushing stuff around. And the reason is, and I'm going to flip this over so you can see that it's turning out really good. Now what happened is I got too close with the heat gun, and that imperfection right there is caused by me melting the paint underneath. Other than that, it appears to turn out pretty good. So the chop method, we then come back with the heat gun kind of to, if you have any, I chopped it with the chop brush, and then I went back and forth a couple times real lightly. What that did is it created some lines on some of the color, and so Sandra just kind of directed me to come back. Like you can see, I can't really see it, but there was a line right here, and we hit it a couple different directions with the heat gun, and it kind of turned those lines, it kind of swirled them out a little bit and kind of took care of cleaning up those straight lines. So we want it really white. We just want a hint of the marbling in it. We don't want any veins. We don't want any the veins or darker colors. So I would say for our first time ever doing this, other than my screw up right there, and I don't know how to fix that. Maybe what we'll do is after it dries, we can come back and maybe clean that out a little bit and pour some more over top of it. I'm not sure. I'll see if I can clean it up. We'll see what happens here, but I think we're kind of screwed with it. So anyway, we'll be back. Okay, we're attempting to fix my little screw up with the heat gun. So we scooped up some of the drippings off the side and I dropped it on top. And I'll show you what we have, and we're just going to kind of let it go for a while and we'll see if it kind of smoothens out, because it seems to be working for now. So that's what we have. So we'll see what happens. It's slowly kind of smoothing out, and we'll probably hit it with the heat gun in a little bit just to see if that will take care of the problem. That looks better than the other stuff, even if it's not perfect, because we are going to put the clear coat back over top this, which will actually smoothen that all in too. So we'll see what happens. Okay, Sunday morning, we poured our color on Saturday morning for our epoxy countertops. We went with the exotic marble look. My wife wanted it a lot of white and only a little bit of marbling effect. So our tops turned out kind of what we wanted, which was just a little extra color in it. It turned out really good. We learned a few things. One, I think the MDF would probably have been a better choice of product, but I had leftover plywood, really nice finished plywood laying around. So we used that. And the only thing I could say we ran into with the plywood is, and they did address it on the stone coat countertops, is the plywood on the edge has multiple layers of wood, and whatever you have underneath on the wood, whether it's a little hole or a little feather from like a notch, I don't want to say a little feather, but a little tiny piece sticking out, anything like that will show through when you go to do the epoxy countertop. So having it nice and smooth, well sanded, all the edges where you want them. So the prep work is definitely important. I think the undercoat we put, the epoxy undercoat, really helped because we sanded in between, and probably could have done a little sanding before we did the first coat of epoxy on there, or color coat epoxy. Might have helped out a little bit. But I'm going to show you the edge. So this was plywood, and even though it turned out really good, you can see one little imperfection there. You can see there was we got some color in it, but this is, see if it'll come into focus. There's your plywood. What I did is, when the epoxy got really thick to where it wasn't running as much, I grabbed some of the product off the bottom down there and put it up on the top and tapped it, and that helped cover up a lot of it. That's where I think the MDF would have probably been a little better choice, but a good example. So any imperfections you have, the epoxy won't hide it. This is where the sink is going in, so we're not too worried about that. We had one little bubble, I'll see if I can catch it, right there, and didn't notice that. It was too late. Most of it turned out good. That one little bad spot we had, where I got too close with the heat gun and blistered the paint underneath, it turned out okay. You can see it, but standing back you don't notice it as much. The color was, my wife is very, very happy with the little amount of color we put into it. It's exactly what she wanted. The only other thing is, if you have, one of the things they tell you is, if you have hair, dogs, a vent above it or anything like that, one of the things they didn't mention is if you have little bugs that like to, I don't know if I can get that to focus or not, but we got a little, let's see, maybe if I go, I don't know if I can get that to focus there, but we had a little tiny gnat got on there. So we got a little gnat underneath, and by the time we realized it, it was too late. We didn't want to mess with it. The epoxy had pretty much set up. So we have a lifelong friend stuck in our countertop. So that's the other thing, is probably keeping an eye on it while it's setting up, in case you find any hairs, any bugs, anything in it that you can remove, because once they're in and it sets up, they're in. So it turned out pretty good. Look forward to, we're going to put the clear coat on this morning, but it is just smooth as could be. I mean, it really worked really well. We got the color we wanted, and I don't know if you can see, but man, this stuff works really well for self-leveling. I did putty a few little spots in with wood putty. I should have done a better job of wood putty on this spot right here. The good thing is it's up against another counter, and you won't really see it unless you know it's there. So, all right, so today it is putting our clear coat down. So we're going to mix that up, dump that on, and by tomorrow morning it should be ready to go, and hopefully tomorrow I can finish the installation. All right, we'll get back with you. I'll show you the final product when we get it all done. All right, we just got the clear coat done, which is just basically mixing up the epoxy, the hardener, and the resin A and B, and poured it on top. And then I have a trowel, but I didn't use it. What I did is I poured it out as evenly as I possibly could. Poured it out as evenly as I possibly could over everything. And then what I did is I came back with a brush and just chopped it out. So we did that yesterday with the color. We didn't use any trowel, and we just poured it out and used the brush lightly to smooth it out as much as we could, all the way up right almost to the edge, and then came back and then chopped it twice over everything. And when we did that, it seems to have made a big difference. I had to put my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing here. There we go. So we chopped it out. So let me show you, and then I've hit it with the heat gun twice, and you can see the little micro bubbles slowly popping even without the heat gun. The heat gun definitely makes a difference. Plus, it also seems to kind of help self-level the epoxy out. So that spot we had, you can still see it, but not even close to what it was. So it's actually kind of disappeared. So the good thing is some of the imperfections are gone. You can still see our little friend in there. We'll laugh about that one for a while. And I don't know if you can see, yeah, you can't really see it, but there's a bunch of little tiny micro bubbles across the top. And if you watch, you can actually see them popping themselves. And it's pretty funny, but the heat gun definitely makes a difference. So, all right, we're gonna torch it a couple more times. I say torch it. Here's our heat gun. And I believe this is a Harbor Freight special. Can't remember what I paid for it. But I can't even remember the reason I bought it, but I've had it for quite a while and it seems to work fine. I do it about 12 inches above straight above the epoxy where it's setting up. I do about 12 inches on number 2, and it's just like magic. It works real good. I bought a torch. I had a torch and I bought another one, and I haven't used the torch on either one of these projects or either one of these boards, and I think the heat gun works fantastic. So for those people out there not feeling comfortable with a torch, heat gun 12 inches above it works fantastic. All right everyone, last video, I believe it'll be the last video for our epoxy countertop makeover in our laundry room. So I'm going to show you what the final product is. Couple more beginner tips, I'm going to say, because I am definitely a beginner. This is the first time we've ever done it. So I'm going to just give you a couple things that we did. First one I'm going to tell you is while I was setting up with the clear coat on it, the second coat, and I would use the I decided, I put my heat gun away, cleaned up a bunch of my tools, just letting it set up. And I was scraping underneath with a tongue blade. And when I scraped underneath with a tongue blade, I slipped and I caught the top of it and I made a little indent on the top of the clear coat. So I freaked out, ran down, grabbed my torch, came back and torched it, started torching it out with my torch. And I didn't like what it was doing. I did some on the top. And what it seems to do with the resin or the epoxy is it's starting hard, and the torch will actually gel it a little bit. And then it seems to want to push up onto where the epoxy is a little thicker, and you get ripples. And that's still staying quite a ways away from it. So I quickly put the torch to the side, ran down and got my heat gun and my extension cord, got back up here, took the heat gun to that little indent I did, and wow, the heat gun, so much easier to control, at least for me, for a beginner. Much better to use than the torch. And the torch, when you're on top of it, you can't hold it exactly upside down or straight down onto it. If you could, that would probably help, but I couldn't. And so you're kind of going at an angle to the epoxy, and it ripples everything. So again, I got my heat gun right up on top of it, straight down at it, at about 12 inches or so, right around in there, 10, 12 inches. Heats it up, the gel, and it gels it, and it just levels out. And it takes all the air bubbles out, everything. So personally, buying the torch was not even worth it. A good heat gun is what you want. For me, anyway, that's my opinion for only doing it one time. Maybe I'll change it if I was to do it more often. But the heat gun worked fantastic for us. So I'm going to take you down to the laundry room here. I'm going to spin the video around so that you can see it. And so there it is. We still got to put some knobs on the drawers and a few things, but I got the sink in. I still got to plumb the sink. Everything's down below. I just haven't got to it. And then we're going to probably put a backsplash on the back. I got to seal around the edges and everything. So just some finish work. But this is how it turned out. And let's see. I don't know if you can see our little friend back there. He's back there in the corner. And then as far as that spot on the board, I'm going to show you how it ended up turning out. That my little screw up that I had. But surprisingly enough, oh, not quite there. Had to search for it. Right there. And all in all, it kind of got a little gray color onto it. You really don't even notice it. So there's the sink. And again, my wife wanted this board. I put runners underneath of it. And so it slides right down into the sink, and adds a little extra room for her to do. Not like she doesn't have plenty of room in here. Not sure why she wanted that, but man, it turned out really good. You can see just a hint of color. She wanted it very white so it would match in with the rest. And then I think she has a backsplash that a certain backsplash that she wants to use, and it needs to match that. So all in all, it turned out pretty fantastic for our first time. And again, the front actually turned out really good. It's kind of interesting. It got a little ridge on it right down here as it was setting up, just from the tension, but it actually looks kind of cool on it. So yeah, I wouldn't change it. I do this project all over again. So yeah, it turned out really good. I was very happy with it. So other than finishing up the plumbing and everything, I give it a thumbs up on Stone Coat Epoxy countertops. And just watch a bunch of the videos. Listen to Mike. Really do your research. We watched other videos of other epoxy countertops and people doing it. And we felt that Stone Coat, I think they offered the best videos, When I talked to them on the phone, the support was fantastic. So I think they have a really good product, really good service. So we went with them. Not to say that there's not other companies out there that maybe have a good product and good service. We just felt Stone Coat was a good way for us to go, and we have no regrets. It turned out really good. So as they say, it's Stone Coat. You got this. But Stone Coat, we want to tell you, we got this.